Greetings, everyone. I hope everyone was as pleasantly surprised as I was with what we've just heard from Frictional Games because, honestly, it's quite the package. On March 6, 2020, Frictional Games released the full trailer for their new upcoming game, Amnesia Rebirth. While this announcement does render the point of my previous video, where I expressed my thoughts on the teaser that they put out, moot, I'm not too disappointed over it. This obviously marks the start of a new path for Frictional Games, and they're also sticking to the series that they've seen success with in the past, and one which arguably drove Frictional Games to success in the first place. For the actual trailer, a brief rundown is in order. Here goes. The interior to some kind of vehicle is shown, most likely in an airplane. Someone is heard talking through a radio, asking for the crew of the Cassandra. They say they found help, whatever that could mean. Whoever it is says they're here with Yasmin and then asks for an Eva. This person then reveals themselves to be called Anton Metzier. While all this is going on, shots of a female figure moving through underground passages is shown intermittently. Then, several things happen at once. It's probably best just to show you. And that's the trailer. Definitely an exciting reveal for Frictional Games, but surprisingly that's not all we have to go on for this new game. There's an official Steam release page for the game, added presumably the same time that the trailer was released. There's a description of the story, which goes as follows. You can't let out a breath. The creature is only inches away. Its sole purpose? To feed off your terror. And so you crouch in the dark, trying to stop the fear rising, trying to silence what lies within you. I know you. I know what you're capable of. In Amnesia Rebirth, you're Tassi Trianon, waking up deep in the desert of Algeria. Days have passed. Where have you been? What did you do? Where are the others? Retrace your journey, pull together the fragments of your shattered past. It is your only chance to survive the pitiless horror that threatens to devour you. Do not allow yourself anger. Do not allow yourself to fear. Time is against you. Step into Tassi's shoes and guide her through her personal terror and pain. While you struggle to make your way through a desolate landscape, you must also struggle with your own hopes, fears, and bitter regrets. And still you must continue, step by step, knowing that if you fail, you will lose everything. First-person narrative horror experience. Explore environments and uncover their histories. Overcome puzzles that stand in your way. Carefully manage your limited resources, both physical and mental. Encounter horrific creatures and use your wits and understanding of the world to escape them. And that's about as straightforward as it can get. It seems like we're all diving right into another one of Frictional Games' horror and mystery-filled stories that they make so well. Now, on that point, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on just how unique and terrifying the past stories we've gotten from Frictional Games off of their video games have been. Look at Penumbra as a series, for example. The story of Penumbra, in a nutshell, would be the son of an ex-researcher who worked for a secret company that studied xenobiology deep underground in a secret research station goes to find his father in said research station. This secret company encountered a tomb of an extraterrestrial force that released a virus to protect itself. This extraterrestrial force has actually insinuated itself into some culture having been from Earth's past. Moving on, in the Amnesia series you play as several characters who cannot remember anything about their past when you initially start. Through a series of loosely related events, you get the general picture that in the past, a series of orbs were left on Earth and subsequently become the subject of Mithraism. These orbs eventually have a profound impact on the characters you play as in the present when the games take place. In Soma, you start out by just playing an ordinary man going in for a brain scan after an accident. However, things take a dark turn when instead of waking up from what should have been a normal scan, you find yourself in what looks like hell. Eventually, you find out you're stuck aboard Pathos 2, an underground facility, decades after your brain scan. It's found out that you are not who you think you are. And subjects like consciousness and what makes you truly human have you grapple with your own thoughts as you traverse the facility. Why have I brought all these up? It's to make the point that every time Frictional Games have come out with a game, they've always given the story that surrounds the game a special charm, making it very unique with aspects of cosmic horror and obvious Lovecraftian influence. This gives the games the advantage of always being somewhat unique each time, even if they appear similar at face value due to marketing, appearance, or gameplay. The mechanics of these games has always been relatively simple, yet adequate for what the game is trying to accomplish. It's reasonable to assume that progression of the quality of both the story and the gameplay naturally will result in Amnesia Rebirth being better on both accounts, yet similar to what's come before it. It's also reasonable to assume that we could get a continuation of the Amnesia series' world story after the events of the Dark Descent, Justine, and A Machine for Pigs, given that the location is in Algeria, the location of the first orb that Daniel found so many years ago. Those are all my thoughts about the game and what I think it could turn out to be. I'm very excited, and I'm assuming that the community is feeling much the same. But speaking of the community, here are a few prominent members of the Amnesia community giving their own thoughts about Amnesia Rebirth.
Hello Frictional Games fans, it has been roughly 7 years since the last indirect Amnesia sequel, A Machine for Pigs, developed by the Chinese Room and published by Frictional Games. If you go to the New Games Steam page, however, you'll notice it reads that Frictional Games are both the developers and publishers of this new title. So what is Amnesia Rebirth exactly? We know the time and setting are completely different than the last games. Amnesia: The Dark Descent, the first title developed and published by Frictional Games in 2010, took place in the dark Prussian forest in the year 1839. A Machine for Pigs, the aforementioned game released in 2013, took place at the dawn of the 20th century, London, New Year's Eve, 1899. On the game's Steam page, it states, quote, "You're Tassi Trianon, waking up deep in the desert of Algeria. Days have passed. Where have you been? What did you do? Where are the others? Retrace your journey, pull together the fragments of your shattered past. It is only your chance to survive the pitiless horror that threatens to devour you." End quote. In the original game, The Dark Descent, the archaeologist protagonist you play as went on an expedition before the events of the game to uncover the secrets of an Algerian tomb. In the tomb was a Mithraic orb that harnesses immense power, guarded by a Lovecraftian spirit known as the Shadow, something that pursues you in the game and creates fleshy matter all around you that can be arguably seen in the trailer. The original game's protagonist stated in one of the notes in the original game, "The crudely carved passage confused me. It looked much older than the 4th century structure we had expected. The twisting path emerged into a great antechamber. The walls were lined with statues unlike any I'd ever seen. Despite their unearthly quality, I felt a strange familiarity toward them, which haunts me still. At the far end of the chamber, a great slab of stone sealed off whatever lay ahead. I gave the order to raise it, and as I pushed through the narrow space, the heavy stone suddenly dropped, sealing me inside. I was trapped." Now in this original game, this was right before he found this Mithraic orb, and when he grasped it in his hands, that's what set forth the original game's events where the Shadow pursued the protagonist, which led the protagonist to seek help from the Baron of Brennenburg Castle, Alexander. If you play the original game, which you should, it'll elaborate more on what I'm talking about. Now, it's exciting to hear that this very tomb may be what we're seeing in this new trailer. You can even see otherworldly statues as stated in the original game's note. So who is Tassi? Well, it is safe to say she doesn't even know that question. We may only be able to find out by stepping in her shoes, traversing through what is presumably the dark tombs described in the original game's lore. Do not take my words for gospel though. I'm a sleep-deprived man who just took 3 melatonin tabs only to be jarred awake by this very surprising news. Regardless of the latter, I'm too excited to even fall asleep now. Since it took a bit of time for this current video to be published, I decided to add in some extra thoughts and theories after waking up the next day. The official announcement trailer has been published by Frictional Games on March 6, 2020, after several unsettling subliminal videos have been released on their channel leading up to the announcement, similar to what they did with Soma before its announcement. Maybe just to have fun with the announcement, but to also show off their great sound design work, especially in the video titled Box 17, Card 9, a sort of live-action teaser for the new game of recovered footage found in December of 2013 in the game's universe, which could theoretically be when the game takes place, or sometime around that point. The beginning of the trailer shows what seems to be a 40s or 50s era airliner plane that has been seemingly abandoned for many years, leading us further to believe the game takes place not in the 20th century, but the 21st century perhaps. Flashlights, flares, and glow sticks may be returning, or something similar, especially since the Steam page reads, quote, "Carefully manage your limited resources, both physical and mental," end quote. Meaning that both the sanity mechanic, the inventory and resource management, managing items you collect throughout the gameplay, are making a long-awaited return. Since both A Machine for Pigs and Soma, for the most part, lacked these game mechanics, which to me made the gameplay feel much more shallow and boring. Not to say they aren't great games in a bunch of other aspects. I also had a very interesting conversation in the comments of an intriguing analysis video with a YouTuber who put together the analysis video within minutes after the announcement, named Harry Callishands, who goes by Harry the Professional, with professional purposefully spelled wrong as an internet slang term. The comment thread went like this. A random commenter by the name of Alex says, question, how would she be Daniel's wife? Something Harry says in the video, you would have to be well over 100 years old in Rebirth. I replied to him saying, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Could be a descendant, however. Keep in mind, I shouldn't have done this, but of course I was sleep deprived at the time, and I was currently listening to the video while reading the comments. But Harry then replies, fair question, I approach the overarching concept of amnesia not just as a static point in time that Daniel lived, but a sort of time warp, perhaps even a wormhole, where the characters are dropped into set points in history. Of course, I may be very well wrong. The concept of the early 20th century wife and a mid-19th century husband is difficult to reconcile. But my approach to the analysis was that there is a portal to other worlds of fluid time periods with static characters. Again, this could be an analysis that looks too deep into it, but I hope that the simpler concepts of the analysis give us a general grounding of the time, place, character, possible enemies, etc. Harry then replies to my reply to Alex. He says, this as well, perhaps not Daniel's wife, but in Daniel's lineage. Perhaps I should have qualified my analysis with that. Thanks for contributing to the discussion. I reply to Harry saying, well, the teaser Frictional Games released a few days ago did seem to show a portal of some sort in the Algerian desert. It could be an entrance to the tomb we see, but why light rays coming out of the supposed dark tomb? A time warp is certainly an interesting theory. Harry then replies, I really hope they follow up with another trailer to add to it. I really need to go back and play The Dark Descent. I then reply, will be replaying The Dark Descent myself to refresh my memory, no pun intended.
For a while now, I knew that something like this would happen. Amnesia is Frictional Games' flagship title, and it put the company on the map when it released. I remember back when I saw the teaser trailer for Amnesia The Dark Descent, it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I didn't have any money with me for the time because I was just an 11-year-old with pocket change, so I watched the game for the first time, and it was the most terrifying and mysterious game I've ever seen. I had never seen anything like it. All of my favorite creators played this game in their own way, and the more I learned about the game, the more I became infatuated with it, and it inspired me to do what I do today, as a writer and a creator. I knew right away from the I Am Tassie trailer that this was another Amnesia sequel. The footage in the trailer was very identical to what Daniel described in his third journal entry when he was trapped in the tomb of Tin Hinan in Algeria. When he touched the orb, he spoke, spiraling towers, endless deserts, and impossible geometry. This was the Algerian desert shown, but the blue light in the cave comes from another orb that we will find in the game. The woman Tassie also speaks in a similar manner as Daniel after he took the amnesia mixture in the beginning of The Dark Descent. So it looks like we'll start the game the same way. I have been following Frictional Games for years now, and I have seen what they do with their games. I'm not sure Amnesia Rebirth will give me the same sense of wonder and awe as I had in The Dark Descent, but I am still thrilled to death to hear that this game is coming out, and I have waited for this game for a while now, and after playing through Soma, then I'm really hopeful for this game. I predict that it may be the last in the series when it comes out. It will be the 10th anniversary of Amnesia: The Dark Descent, the game that changed horror.
I started modding for Amnesia: The Dark Descent in 2013, and I am mostly interested in the technical side of things, so I don't feel entitled to speculate too much about the lore and characters of this new game. At first glance, I thought Amnesia Rebirth would follow the same visual theme of the original Amnesia, but I was wrong. This game uses some evolution of the HPL3 engine and seems to be set in quite recent times. My best guess is that the protagonist was involved in a plane crash and suffered amnesia. Personally, I prefer the gothic look and feel of the original game, and I don't fancy too much the futuristic setting of Soma, which uses the same engine in principle, so I'm eager to see what Frictional has built for a more down-to-earth game, even though funny thing is, Soma was set underwater.
Well, hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Axel, also known as Magnus. I'm a friend of Seth and a contributor for Midnight Researcher. If you might not know, a few days ago actually, our friends at Frictional Games decided to graze us with, well, quite an amazing present, really. They decided to release a teaser trailer called I Am Tassie. So, what we saw in that trailer wasn't much. Actually, it didn't really hint at the fact that this was a new Amnesia game. It was just a teaser trailer. It didn't give much information other than, well, a name and a possible location, but it didn't say much. Well, a couple of days ago, they actually released a full-on trailer, which revealed the fact that this was going to be an actual Amnesia game. I took a lot of notes on every little detail, little thing that I found, and I want to go over them, each one of them. The first thing I noticed about the teaser trailer, I Am Tassie, she goes, she mutters a phrase, "Need to find him. You must understand." So this kind of piqued my interest, and precisely into who is he. She says, "Need to go find him." So, what are we talking about? She says, "I am Tassie. I'm still Tassie." So, if you might not know, our new protagonist, her name is Tassie Trianon, or Tassie Trianon. Well, I'll get more into detail as to why I pronounce it like I do. So, one thing that caught my attention about the teaser trailer, and I found this out before I noticed this before I found out her last name, is the fact that Tassie seems to speak in it's kind of barely noticeable sometimes, but Tassie seems to speak in a French accent. So when you tie that into her last name, Tassie Trianon, it's a French last name, so it actually makes me wonder, is Tassie French, or is Tassie French Algerian? Why is this important? If you take into consideration, which is my next point, the time and the setting of this game. So, we don't really know what period the game takes place in. The time, actually, a few clues, there are a few clues thrown about that tell us more or less what time this game is going to take place in. And I've been able to, based on mainly the plane that we see, this, I actually looked a lot into it. This looks like a commercial plane. Based on this, I've been able to say that, well, this game probably takes place somewhere between the 1930s and the 1940s. The 1920s to 1940s. I even go as far as to say possibly the 1950s. That's as far as I would go. I would say probably the 1930s because, well, if you take a look at the plane itself, it is a commercial model that was kind of popular back in the 1930s, that C configuration. It actually rings me as possibly a commercial model. And so that and the technology that we have present in the trailer itself, what it shows tells me that it's fairly modern times as compared to the first game, which took place in the 1800s. There is a possibility, I've been toying around with this, the fact that our new protagonist, Tassie Trianon, could be somehow related to our previous protagonist, Justine Flavel. Now this might sound far-fetched, but if you take into account the fact that one of our previous protagonists was related to another previous protagonist, I'm of course talking about Oswald Mandes and Daniel from the first game. Daniel is actually Oswald Mandes' great uncle. So it is possible that there is some sort of relation between the Flaubels and the Trianons. If you might remember, there is a relation between Daniel and Justine. They basically know each other through their relationship between Professor Herbert and Monsieur Flaubel. So it is possible that Tassie Trianon is part of this also renowned French family. So if you might remember in the trailer, you can see for a brief moment, you can see in the back of one of the plane seats, you can see a tiny logo with 3 crowns. This could be a tie-in with the last, with the surname Trianon. So it is possible that Tassie is a part of this wealthy family. Perhaps they own the airline. Another little detail that I also noticed about Tassie herself, and you can see in the first scenes of the game, Tassie wears a ring on her left ring finger, which indicates, or could indicate, that perhaps she is married. So why is this important? Is this related to the plot? Perhaps. I believe, if you remember the first quote from the teaser trailer, "I am Tassie, need to go find him," he must understand. But who is he? Well, perhaps he could be Tassie's husband. So we also know that maybe the inventory system is making a return, with probably having a light resource that requires either batteries or oils. So if you might notice, we don't actually get to see what our light source is going to be. We don't actually get to see that. So it could be an oil lamp, it could be a torch, it could be a flashlight, possibly a flashlight. That is going to need either oil or fuel or batteries or whatever that we'll have to manage with our inventory system. So either that, gunshot, possibly a gunshot wound on Tassie's knee tells me that we either are going to be shot in the leg at some point, really impairing our movement, or that we'll actually be seeing some enemies that can shoot at us, which will be an interesting turn for these types of games. That Tassie wears a ring, that she's possibly married, could be important to the story. So, I'm gonna be honest, I mean, I didn't really know that this game was coming out. I didn't even know that the trailer came out until today, but I am fairly excited about it. I watched it once, twice, I watched it several times. Both trailers, I watched them several times, and I believe I was able to catch on several tiny little details, but please let me know if you found something else, if you guys managed to find something that maybe I didn't see, if you guys know of anything else, any kind of information that will be useful or pertinent to the story, because I really want to hear more about this. I'm really excited about this, and well, that's about it. That's basically all I got, basically all I have. So with that, I hope you found this useful, and hopefully we'll be seeing more of this game eventually. And well, with that, I say hello. This has been Axel, aka Magnus, for Midnight Researcher. Thanks a lot for listening, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.
So, there's a new Frictional game coming out. Fuck yeah! So, lately they've had trailers come out, like teasers for this new Frictional game. I first thought it was 2 games. It's not. It's just one. It is called Amnesia Rebirth, as far as I know. The first teaser trailer came out with something called I Am Tessie. Basically, that's the character of the new game. That's, I'm guessing, our protagonist. There's not much to see in it. She does sound like she might possibly be French. I'm not sure. Just kind of judging by her voice. You do see also at the end of it, towards the end of it, you don't really see much. You just her kind of talking, and then there's this desert, and then she's kind of reassuring herself that she is Tessie, which leads me to believe maybe there's some sort of kind of Amnesia-esque involvement with the, losing your memory and not remembering who you are, or possibly losing your mind and reassuring yourself you are the person you originally were. Could be one of those two things. I really don't know. But I'm kind of guessing it's going to be something along the lines of her just kind of losing it. And just by the sounds of it, it's kind of like, I am Tessie. Yeah, okay, we get it. But also this desert thing, we saw in Soma, where we ventured into the water and underground, not so much oasis, but now we're going to the desert. And there was, for me, in the second trailer, which was for Amnesia Rebirth, you see, I got like kind of a BioShock feel. And to have the game prior to being based in the water or the ocean, and this one to be in a desert, that's something that BioShock did. And we went from Rapture that was underwater, and now we're in Infinite. It was a city in the sky. Completely polar opposites. What does that mean? Could mean nothing. But I just find it curious, as why is they're going with the desert location or whatever. With that said, and the second trailer teaser, we see what looks to be like underground areas, like caverns. One almost looks like or whoever is inside, kind of a cabin. Almost looks like it might have been from a train or something, with a chair. And you see a door. Not much, just kind of creeping along down a hallway with a voice over a radio. And alongside of that, you see, obviously, Tessie kind of exploring these locations. Right before it kind of goes batshit crazy, you hear a voice named Anton come over the radio saying, "Please say something." Again, what does that mean in an area that looks like it's been completely ruined and abandoned for God knows for how long, hundreds of years possibly, and expecting to have some kind of communication going on in this area. So I'm guessing that there's going to be 2 main characters possibly, Tessie and then whoever this voice is on the radio, Anton. I think that's the name. I think it was Anton. It sounded like Anton. But also, there's definitely monsters in this. You see one off in the distance that vaguely resembles, from what I could tell, is like one of the custom design monsters that you see in Amnesia that I think was only used in custom stories. Custom story gatherers always refer to him as the big boys. Here comes a big boy. And he looks like a very muscular, messed up version of an Amnesia monster. And if I remember correctly, one of his arms is kind of messed up or missing. But he's a big beast, and he's like a one shot. But it kind of looks like one of those guys off in the distance. I don't know what that means either. But we definitely know it means monsters. It wouldn't be a Frictional game without monsters in it. I mean, come on. But yeah. But I guess to end this, the one thing that I find most interesting is the title choice, Amnesia Rebirth. Now, you could toss up many ideas on what this is going to be. Could it be a prequel to Amnesia? Not so much. I've heard, some of my friends who play this game as avidly as I do. I don't know how many custom stories I've done, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And following the game, if it's going to be called Rebirth, I don't think it would be a prequel. It'd be more like a sequel, you would think. So, what direction is this going? Who is Tassie? Who is Anton? That all remains to be seen, but the location is completely different. It's not a medieval castle. It's not anything underwater. It's in a desert. Well, at least the location leads us to believe it's in a desert. Maybe it's not. Maybe that's just trying to mess with our heads. Developers like to do that. So who knows? But I am actually very anxious. I am so excited to hear that Frictional is coming out with this. Hopefully mind blown. And look forward to it in autumn. The fall of this year. That's exciting. I can't wait. And yeah, that's my take on the trailer. There's really not much for me to say because there's not really all that much to go on, but just what you see and kind of what you know of the developers and what they've done in the past, and take it from there. But no matter what, I'm sure it's gonna be a fantastic. It's gonna be a fantastic little adventure. That's for sure. If not scary as hell. Yeah, I think we can agree on that.
Thank you for watching this video. I didn't expect to have to make this video so soon, again, but needs must as the devil drives, or in this case, Frictional Games. This has been Seth, the Midnight Researcher, and I will see you all around.